Okay, thank you, Heather, and Amy, and Lupe, and Jennifer, for having this. We're excited. As Heather said, I'm a professor at the secondary ed, and I have the honor to be the Bilingual Authorization Program Coordinator, and I teach as well one of the two required classes for this program. And so what we're going to do, who best to talk about the program that the students are amazing students. A little bit biased, the best students at CSUF are the Bilingual Authorization students, so no pressure about the students in that. And so I'm going to ask them a series of questions. And after that, we will open for questions from the audience about logistics, about the program. I don't want to start with that. So let's just start with their testimonies and all the things they know about the program from the student perspective. And then if you have any questions about the program, either they can answer or I can answer those. So if you don't mind. So ready, Nancy, Stephanie, and Sandra. We have another panelist who may join later. Hopefully she does. And then as soon as she does, we will catch up with her. So I'm going to start with Sandra. Can you let us know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Sandra. I'm a student teacher. This is my second semester at Placencia School District, more specifically at El Dorado High School. And yeah, I'm really excited to finish the credential program.
Thank you, Sandra. Stephanie Enrique.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Enriquez. I am a fifth grade teacher in Capistrano Unified School District at a dual immersion school. I teach fifth grade. I'm actually still in the credential program. I'm in the second semester of the credential program. I'm just also teaching on an intern credential.
Thank you, Stephanie. Nancy.
Hi, Nancy Larios. I work as a TOSA at Betsy Ross Elementary in Anaheim, and it's a reading intervention TOSA, so I've been doing that for about 12 years now.
Thank you, Nancy. So as you all can see, we have teachers from different stages on their career. Sandra almost finishing her teaching credential and her bilingual authorization. Woohoo! Stephanie almost there too. She already finished the bilingual authorization. She's close to finish the teaching credential, and Nancy's already has been in the classroom. So you can see the array of experiences that we have right here. Let's just start with Stephanie right now. Why did you decide to enroll in the bilingual authorization program, Stephanie?
I enrolled in the bilingual authorization program because Spanish is my first language. And I didn't have the privilege of going to a dual immersion school growing up. And through that process, I lost a lot of my language. And then I worked really hard to regain it throughout my college education. So I view biliteracy, bilingualism, plurilingualism as something that is an asset, and more than an asset, it's just a major part of students' identities. And that's something that I want to help sustain and just make sure that all of my students have a right to keep their language, and also support families who have multiple languages and teach in those settings. So I just think it's really important with the way California legislation is drafted. Bilingual programs there will be more bilingual programs throughout California. So I think it's really important for all of us who speak multiple languages to have bilingual authorizations in our as something that we have a certification, an asset. I'm running out of words already.
No, just to add what Stephanie said, we are authorized at Cal State Fullerton to work with candidates in 4 different languages: Spanish, Mandarin, Vietnamese, Korean, and Khmer. And I'm just going to add things about the program as we go rather than just summarize it at the end. And then if you want to teach in a bilingual program on a dual language program, as Stephanie said, from TK all the way to high school, and I said it right, all the way to high school, you need to have the bilingual authorization on top of your teaching credential. And we talk about the benefits of having your bilingual authorization, and they will share their testimony. So, but what about you, Nancy? Why did you decide to enroll in the program?
Well, I've been at TOSA, like I said, for about 12 years. And during those 12 years, we support English-only students, meaning we don't help DLI classes. And I feel that's a disservice to them, because if we want our students to be biliterate, in English and Spanish, then, or any other language, they need to have that support as well in Spanish. So I feel that if I'm more, well, like Stephanie was saying, I have that certificate, I could also service those students that need those skills for reading in Spanish as well.
And if I had to add what Nancy said, she
Yeah.
works at Anaheim Elementary School District, and 4 years ago, with the new superintendent, Anaheim used to have 8 schools with a dual immersion program. The new superintendent decided to go district-wide. So now it's 25 schools, all of them. That doesn't mean the whole school is a dual immersion program, but they have, in some of them, it's double track, no? It's English only and then dual immersion. But I wanted to highlight this because Anaheim was kind of like leading that is, let's go all the way. Why just at the school? Let's go all the way, having opportunity for all the students, not just some, all. And of course, then families decide if the dual immersion program is the choice that they want to select. Sandra, what about you?
Okay, so I'll be honest why I enrolled. So I enrolled because I got an email. I can't remember from who, but it was from someone from the credential program. Prior to this email, I had no idea that the bilingual authorization program existed. So when I got the email, I was like, you know, it'll be nice, you know, Spanish being my first language, it'll be nice to teach history, social science in Spanish. But you know, once I enrolled and went through the classes, I kind of found my why and my reason why I want to be a teacher, or specifically a dual language teacher. So yeah, so that's the reason why I enrolled, because I got an email, or else I wouldn't have enrolled.
So thank you, Sandra, which means that we need to still do a lot of work in our end, not to better advertise in that sense, because the program is here, and sometimes we get the students as early as freshmen, and I want to thank Amy and Heather and Jennifer and Lupe, because we start really hopefully mentoring throughout this, so by the time they decide to become bilingual teachers, they're ready. But you can see different choices, but the good news is that the 3 are here and they're amazing teachers, and they're already making an impact out there. So let's start with Nancy now. What are the 2 most important ideas that you have learned, or are you learning, because you're still in the program? So what are the 2? I know that you learn many, many things, but you have to highlight 2 and why these 2 are so important.
Ooh, okay. Well, one of them, from you, of course, I learned that to take a stance when it comes to students and their education. I think to really get to know who you are as a teacher and what it is that you want the students to get out of, you know, and learn from you. And I think just really truly get to know why you're doing what you're doing and your beliefs for it. And then the other one is the word translanguaging. Before I started this program, I had no idea what that was, what it meant, nothing. And when you start talking about it, so I was like, what is he talking about? And now that we're going through the program, I see how I start to see how effective it is, you know, and how it could actually, and how I could use it with students. And I do use it with my students, and just the communication that when I talk to them, they reply back and they're translanguaging and they like it, you know. It's just another form for them to express their ideas without being judged and knowing that they're going to be heard and understood. So,
thank you, Nancy. If you don't mind, I don't want to put you on the spot. Can you explain the audience what translanguaging is? Because I know that you say that it's beautiful, but and it is beautiful.
Well, okay. Well, I'll try my best. Okay, so it's just being able to use the languages that you have and into like one. So it's kind of mixing them instead of saying, if you want to say a sentence in English, but there's a word you don't know, then you just put in the Spanish word that you know for it, and you just say it in a sentence, and it just flows out naturally. It's like you don't think about it. It's just mixing the languages to make your point across.
I love it. You explain it. That's exactly right. No, that we use our whole linguistic repertoire to communicate, and that's the way we really reinforce the inclusiveness of languages in the classroom. No, Sandra, what about you? What are the two things that you highlight that you are learning or you learn?
Okay, so I learned like many things, but I guess like two of the most important things. The first one is like we have to push our students, you know, like they're so used to using in just one language instruction setting. So we had to push them, and we as teachers, we have to be the examples for them, to use their most of the times it's their native language within the classroom setting. In my case, Spanish. And I include myself that I'm so used to just English only classroom settings that sometimes we feel weird using something else that is not English. So yeah, so we have to push them, and even ourselves as teachers. And then that comes with the other thing. It's like Nancy was saying, we have to brave up as teachers. We have to brave up. We are examples for the kids. We are examples for our students. We have to show them that it's okay when, you know, a certain word is not said correctly, that we're learning from each other in order to make our language be more acceptable and more inclusive within, you know, like future generations.
Thank you, Sandra. I support 100% that we had to brave up out there. It's not easy. It's amazing, but it's not easy. Nothing comes easy in the field of teaching and learning. So I highlight that. Before I go to Stephanie, we have our fourth panelist who just, oh, Lorena, are you there? Oh. It's okay, Lorena. We're okay. We got you. Okay. So we already, I'm going to ask you the first question and then I will jump to Stephanie and then you will catch up. So just briefly, Lorena, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And then we will continue with the questions. Oh, you're muted, Lorena.
And I'm muted. Hello, everyone. My name is Lorena Godinez. Sorry, I apologize. Technical difficulties. I've been teaching for 24 years, and I attended Cal State Fullerton. Actually, got my bachelor's and my master's and my credential from Cal State Fullerton. I presently teach at Lower Elementary School, 5th grade, and I'm really excited to become their new 4th grade dual language immersion teacher for next year.
Okay, so you pretty much answered number 1 and 2, and then you will catch up with 3. Awesome. Thank you, Lorena. Stephanie, can you tell us about what are the couple of ideas that you would like to highlight and share with the audience that you learned in the program?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that resonated with me throughout the program was that English is not the only language that knowledge can be conveyed through. Our students are absolutely brilliant, and they have a plethora of knowledge. And when we tell them that the only way they can communicate their knowledge is through English, we are harming them. We should empower them to use their full linguistic repertoire to convey their knowledge. And it is up to us to make that effort as teachers, as educators, to assess that knowledge through the language that they have it in, and then we'll amplify that, right? Like that's something that Professor Rodriguez-Weiss has always communicated to me. We start with what they have and then we amplify it. And if we amplify it through English, then that's how we'll amplify it, but we meet them where they are. And then that other component of empowerment. We are not letting the students speak in their language. We are empowering them to use their language, their full repertoire. I think those are the two most important things to me. And I try to remind myself of that in the classroom every day. I am not letting any student do anything. I am empowering them, and that will sustain them throughout their education. So that is something that I carry with me every day in the classroom.
You see, thank you, Stephanie. When I said that the best students are the bilingual authorization students, here is the data to prove it. I have evidence of that. So they are. Lorena, the question that we're asking, and can you share with us what are the two most important things, or the two things that you learn in the program? Lorena and Nancy are super close to finish, like Sandra. So I think we are close to celebrate. Celebration is part of important too. Okay, Lorena.
16th of December. How many days is that? I'm going to miss the classes. I'm going to miss both you and Professor Hassis. But I really, I've learned a lot. I mean, I remember in my master's program, there were a lot of pedagogies. I learned all that. However, in this bilingual, in this course, not only have I learned to master that there are differences between like translanguaging and code switching, and there's all these different things that I learned pertaining to how a student develops both languages and how one is switched to another. My huge thing that I feel I benefited from was doing all this in Espanol. Wow, I'm really proud of myself. I feel like Dr. Rodriguez Valls, not only does he push us, he motivates us, but he's really, gives me that, empujar, me empuja, but just to do it, because I really didn't think I could do this at the beginning. I'm like, I can't do this. And I'm just like jamming on papers and it's all in Spanish. I'm like, whoa. And I'm reading it to my mom, who's from Mexico City, who is fluent in Spanish. And she's like, mija, ¿cómo? I was like, Mom, si se puede. And you know what? That to me, that he made this do this in Spanish, it's like, I was scared. And I admit I was probably one of the most scared ones in there, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And now I'm so confident and I just feel like I've grown. So to me, that's one huge, wasn't really, it was a challenge, but yet it's something that I really, really appreciate from the course. Not any course ever that I've taken has been this intense and this like, wow, I got to do this in Spanish. And now I feel like I'm doing awesome. I really feel I am. I hope I am.
You are.
Thank you.
I can tell you for. So before we jump to the next one, we have a comment, Nicole. Spanglish is a tool that you can use as part of your translanguages. It's not exactly the same as Spanglish in translanguaging. However, Spanglish has a lot of value. Our students use it all the time. We use it all the time. As one tool that we use to communicate. And I think it's important. I'm glad that you're citing this, because sometimes we say that it's not a way that students can communicate in the school, and they should. Teachers need to draw from that. It's part of the linguistic repertoire, and for they utilize the language in different purposes. But yeah, definitely it has the same level, the same rigor, and language is a dynamic body. We change all the time. And I'm glad that it's not the same thing that we spoke in the 1700s, no? And Espanol and English, Korean, Vietnamese. So the language evolved, and we had to evolve with the languages as well. Sandra, let's just go back to you. Besides all the beauty and the amazing things they're saying, the program has rigor. So what are the challenges that you face throughout the program? So now let's go with the challenges.
Okay, so just within the program, I guess like I mentioned before, like I'm so used to English only classroom setting, and when I began with ADSC, even though like I'm fluent in Spanish and I use Spanish every single day, like that's how I communicate with my family, with friends, with my siblings. When I began the program with EDSC 541, and I had to do the assignments in Spanish, it was tough. It wasn't tough in a way that I couldn't do it, but it was tough in a way that I felt that I was not giving my all within like my writing specifically. But then when I began Dr. Fernando Rodriguez Vaz with EDSC 446, I learned to use both of my languages within my writing, and it was way easier. And it was, with the use of translanguaging, you guys are going to be using this translanguaging a lot, and it's going to come in handy a lot. So, so once 446 began, I really enjoyed it. And I think like that's my reason why I wanted like to be like a dual language teacher.
Thank you, Sandra. Stephanie, some of the challenges maybe within and without the program? No, just kidding.
We'll be here all day. I think I'm going to be honest, it is a lot of work. The readings are heavy. And in order to really be able to develop your pedagogies and your practice, you really need to do the readings. Otherwise, you're just kind of winging it, and that will not help you in the long run. Another thing is, if you're anything like me, I just want to know how you do it. Tell me what to do. Tell me where to go get the resources. Tell me what I do with my students. And that's not really how that works. You have to start with theory. You have to develop your pedagogy based off research, and that comes through theories. And really embracing that working through the theories, unlearning, and then learning again what you thought you knew. Really taking your time during that process and not jumping to the practical. It's challenging, but it's worth it because, like Sandra says, that is my why. Being in the classroom is not easy, and there are a lot of days where I don't leave until late at night. There are a lot of times where I just want to cry, but ultimately I just go back to the research and the theory and why I'm here. And that is what guides me with my students every day, more than what activity I'm going to do. So it's challenging, and a lot of the theory doesn't make sense when you read it at first. You're like, what does this mean? And then sometimes it's in a language that you don't think in sometimes, or really process things through. And so that's another challenging component, but it's worth it.
Thank you, Stephanie. And as I think is personally, I have to say, not just because the four of them are right here, it's a stretch that we go back and forth. I'm really excited, and I always tell them and repeat them, and I mean it for real. That is an honor the way they stretch me all the way, because we have to go work together. And the how is the important thing. But I agree with Stephanie. You don't understand the why. The why is the one that's going to support when you go out there, and you need to talk with families. You need to talk with administrators. It's not just doing it because. And one thing, also adding to that, I know that we're focusing in Spanish. However, every class that is taught in Korean and Vietnamese is taught in the language. So this past summer and this next summer, we will offer also in Korean and Vietnamese, is taught 100% in that language, and the assignments are completed 100%. And you may think that's not really stretch, as Stephanie and Sandra said, but down the road is a stretch that's going to pay off, because it's a stretch that we walk together. Hopefully they feel supported in that. It's not like, okay, good luck, you write it, but we need this stretch, because for many, many years, we have been constrained by the English only, and now we need to really stretch. So I appreciate that for all the students, how much they stretch and how much they really push me to rethink and learn all together. Nancy, what about you? What are some of the challenges?
Well, I'm going to agree with my colleagues. Definitely the stretching, one of them. But also just finding the balance. It was for me finding the balance between home, work, and this class. And it's just balance with the time management and knowing when it's like, when I'm going to be a student and not a mom, it's like, okay, now you're on your own. Well, that's for me, obviously. But that along with that's my challenge now. But I feel like once I start actually doing my DLI with my class, when I get my class, then obviously that's going to be a new challenge where I'm going to have to face everything that I've learned here and see how I'm going to implement it there. But yeah, stretching myself, balance, and for the future would be the challenge of how I'm going to implement everything I've learned. Yeah.
Thank you. I support that, and it's important. We're so lucky that we do what we like, but we need to find a balance. I think sometimes the students don't think that we have a life outside the classroom, and we do. We play, we like music, we go to concerts, we do things. We are human. So I think and that's so important. Equally important, everything that you learn in the classroom, by the way, equally important. So you need to really draw from everything that you do in your life in that sense. So Lorena, what about you? What were some of the challenges?
Well, I mentioned one was doing everything in Spanish. That I was like, wow, I didn't know I can do all this. And I'm like, so proud of myself, like I said. But the biggest challenge, I agree with Mrs. Larios, Lancy, is being a full-time teacher, being a full-time mom of a 12-year-old who's in 2 different sports. One is at Cal State Fullerton. I just am trying to balance it out. I remember just going back, being in school, but I didn't have kids. So, and then a 28-year-old getting married in March. So it's been a challenging year, but I must say that you saying stretch it out and you can do it. You just giving us that encouragement. I feel like now it's almost the end, and it pays off. It's going to pay off, because I'm super excited to be in my classroom next year and implement everything I've learned. I can read all about it. I can do all the research. What I need are the students. So I'm looking forward to that. But the material is complex, as Stephanie mentioned. It is intense. I have to read it maybe 3 times compared to maybe someone that's first language, Spanish, but I get it. I'm like writing things out and double the work, but guess what? I understand it.
Thank you, Lorena.
Thank you.
They're so excited. They're coming back and repeat. No, just kidding. I'm joking. Okay. Okay. The last question for the four of you, and then we open to the audience for any questions that you have for what they said, any questions you have about the program. Let's start with you, Stephanie. So you have been in the program. You're still now in the teaching credential program, and you're also teaching out there as an intern. You have the whole thing right there. And only that, she just got married. Okay, so that's another thing. She just got married. Okay, so adding to the plate, why not? Okay, on top of that. So what is the piece of advice that you would like to give to the audience and any prospective bilingual authorization student?
Don't get married while you're doing all this. I'm just kidding. It turned out very nice. But I think my advice would be to always remember why you chose to do the BCLAD authorization program. For a lot of us, we chose to do it because we want to provide a different experience than what we had. And so that means that we are going to provide a different experience than what we had when we were students. Taking what we learned in the BCLAD authorization and maybe even through the lens or framework of JEIE in the credential program and actually implementing that in the classroom and not living in fear of, well, I'm not going to do that because other teachers aren't doing that, or I'm not going to do that because so-and-so might question why I'm doing it. You have a plethora of research that you're going to work throughout the program to support your practice and your why you're doing it. And so it's really important that you implement your knowledge and not just leave it where you learned it. I think that would be probably the most important thing for me, because a lot of times you're in the break room and you hear deficit views, you hear, oh, students need to speak the academic language. Students cannot speak both languages at once. You'll hear a lot of that, but it's really important for you to always remind yourself, I know the research and I'm doing what's best for my students, and to be transparent about that with your administration and your team. That's something that Professor Rodriguez Valles has taught me, to just be transparent and know that research is on your side.
Thank you, Stephanie. Nancy, what's your piece of advice?
I would say, don't be afraid to challenge yourself or to push yourself. I know for me, it took me a while to actually get into this program because I was afraid. I wasn't sure what it was going to be about. I wasn't sure how much work it was going to be. And so that stopped me from actually going through. And now that I'm going through it, I mean, it was well worth it. So just go for it. And it's better to do it now. And it's there's nothing to be afraid, and it's you won't regret it. So yeah.
Thank you, Nancy. Lorena.
I would recommend, or I would share to future candidates that you need to go in there being positive, having that self-esteem where you can do it. Not like I did. I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. It makes a difference. The why factor, I mean, like, why are you doing it? Not just for yourself, and not to better yourself, but it's for a little future. We're molding the future, and we want those students to continue to have their home language. We don't want to eliminate it. It being trans language, it being code switching, being Spanglish, we know that's, whatever it may be, that is who they are. And because we're seeing more and more and more students, with the second language, we need to make sure we have that foundation for these students. And yes, we will hear things like, oh no, they have to start doing the English. Well, no, they actually need both languages.
Thank you, Lorena. Sandra?
Okay, so well, what I can give you guys is that I think, like the career that we chose, teachers, we're the ones who transform society. We're the ones who create future doctors, future politicians, future scientists. And why not do it in a more inclusive way towards our language? where future generations, they feel proud of their native language and they don't feel as less. Because when I was growing up, I did feel less, being, English not being my first language. So during the bilingual authorization program, I just couldn't stop thinking about those new students that we're going to be receiving from other countries where English is not their first language. And I kept asking me, how can I make education more accessible to them in their language? And we can't do it alone. So we need more people. We need more people to be part of the solution to create a future of bilingual students that feel proud of where they come from. And the best advice that I can give you guys is just, like I mentioned before, and Dr. Fernando Vaz, he mentions it a lot, we have to brave up and fight for our language. We're going to have a lot of obstacles, but we have to believe in ourselves and believe in what we are doing to be able to create a future that is more inclusive towards a bilingual education.
Thank you, Sandra. Well, thank you all. This was the last question. If I have to add, you can see the good vibe, the la buena energía, the good energy, So I think it's an advice you need to come with. It's a lot of rigor, it's a lot of work. I'm not going to deny that in both ends, but it's the good vibra, the good energy. I think that we make it through that. Is anything else that you want to add? Any of you, Nancy, Stephanie, Sandra, Lorena, before we take questions from the audience, outside of the questions that I asked you so far? Anything else? Or just Stephanie, go for it. Yeah, for sure.
Your professors are there to assist you and guide you. And so they are resources. A lot of times they'll let you submit work early, get feedback early. I highly recommend that you do that and you reach out to them. Sometimes we never reach out to professors because we maybe have preconceived notions of how they will perceive us, but they're assets and they're always so flexible, so kind. Like, communication is key. So I highly recommend you reach out to your professors.
Thank you, Stephanie. Believe it or not, we are humans too. We're professors, but we're humans. So we have a brain and a heart is big. Not maybe as yours, but it's big. I know that you want to fill out the survey and get a chance to get there, but unless, I don't know, Heather, unless there's any other questions, please, let me write my email address right there, although you have it at the website. But if you have any questions for the panelists, please feel free before we wrap it up. No, Heather, don't you think?
No, I do not. But just again, thank you so much for your time this evening. I know you all taught all day long, or were in class all day long, and then spent another hour with us this evening. So your time is valuable, and we appreciate you sharing your journeys and your experience. Thank you again, Fernando. You're always great, and you have such the greatest students. So I think that's it. Again, thank you, attendees, for being here.